Hello again. It's time for part 1 of my July book haul, and this is the horror section of my book haul. And I have 7 books to cover in this video, so let's just get to it. First 2 books I'm going to cover are by Ronald Malfi. I've only read the short story collection by Ronald Malfi that I really like, so I decided to pick up a couple of Ronald Malfi books. And the first one I picked up was December Park. This says, in the quiet suburb of Harting Farms, the weekly crime blotter usually consists of graffiti or the occasional bout of mailbox baseball. But in the fall of 1993, children began vanishing and one is found dead. Newspapers call him the Piper because he has come to take the children away. But there are darker names for him too. Vowing to stop the Piper's reign of terror, 5 boys take up the search. Their teenage pledge turns into a journey of self-discovery and a journey into the darkness of their own hometown. On the twilight streets of Harding Farms, everyone is a suspect, and any of the boys might be the Piper's next victim. That's December Parks. Next one is The Narrows by Ronald Malfi. This one says, the town of Stillwater has a very unwelcomed resident. The town of Stillwater has been dying. The long, painful death of a town ravaged by floods and haunted by ghosts of all who have lived there. Yet this most recent flood has brought something with it. A creature that nests among the good folk of Stillwater and feeds off them. The children who haven't disappeared whisper the same word, vampire. But they're wrong. What has come to Stillwater is something much more horrific. 2 Ronald Malfi books and 2 books about children. And in this book, I'm not really sure if you would classify them as horror or not, but I saw this first one in the Shades of Orange channel, and I decided to pick it up, and I saw there was a sequel, so I picked that up too. The first book here is Dawn in Damnation. It's Welcome to Damnation, where every living soul is as dead as a doornail except one. Buddy Baker is a dead man, literally. After gunned down more men than Billy the Kid and being hung by a rope necktie for his crimes, the jolly, fast-drawing fugitive reckoned he'd earned himself a non-stop ticket to hell. Instead, he finds himself in Damnation, a gun-slinging ghost town located somewhere between heaven and hell. There are no laws in Damnation, only 2 simple rules. If you get shot, you go directly to hell. If you stay alive without shooting anyone for 1 year, you might just go to heaven. Hardened outlaws pass the time in the saloon playing poker and wagering on who will get sent to hell next, while trying not to anger the town's reclusive vampire or the quarrelsome werewolves. Buddy winds up in everyone's crosshairs after swearing to protect a pretty gal who arrived in Damnation pregnant. Our child might end up a warm-blooded meal for the supernatural residents, or it could be a demon spawn on a mission to destroy them all. That's the first one. And this is the second one in the Damnation series. This is called Dead Indian Wars. I don't want to really read the description in case there's actually a spoiler here, but these are the first 2 books in the paranormal western by Clark Casey, and they sound interesting and I'm looking forward to reading them. Next 2 books is by another author that I haven't read before, but I've heard some people on Twitter talk about it, and I just wanted to check out some of his books. So this is Jonathan Janz, I guess, Janz, and I picked up these 2 books. First one I'm going to talk about here is Exorcist Falls. This says, Chicago is crippled by terror. The Sweet 16 killer is brutally murdering young women and the authorities are baffled. When the police are called to an affluent home in the middle of the night, they learn that a seemingly normal 14-year-old boy has attacked his family. The boy exhibits sign of demonic possession, and even more troubling, he knows too much about the Sweet 16 killings. Father Jason Crowder, a young priest assigned to the case, must marshal his courage in order to save the boy and the entire city from the forces of evil. But there is a darkness mankind has never encountered before. It craves more than blood, and it won't rest until it possesses Father Crowder's soul. Jonathan Jantz's new release brings the original novella that started it all, Exorcist Road, and a brand new full-length novel, Exorcist Falls, together for a shattering experience in supernatural terror. So it sounded really interesting. Again, like I said, I've heard some people mention it on Twitter. I haven't really seen it mentioned on BookTube that much, but I decided to give it a shot. So that's Exorcist Falls. And the other book I picked up by Jonathan Janz is Children of the Night. I love how these have these old looking covers. Both this one and Exorcist Falls kind of has that old rust-beaten cover. Kind of starts to remind you of 80s books. Children of the Dark. Will Burgess is used to hard knocks. Abandoned by his father, son of a drug-addicted mother, and charged with raising his 6-year-old sister, Will has far more to worry about than most high school freshmen. To make matters worse, Mia Samuels, the girl of Will's dreams, is dating the worst enemy, the most sadistic upperclassman at Shanedale High. Will's trouble, however, are just beginning, because one of the nation's most notorious criminals, the Moonlight Killer, has escaped from prison and is headed straight towards Will's hometown. And something else is lurking in the Savage Hollow, the forest surrounding Will's rundown home. Something ancient and infinitely evil. When the worst storm of the decade descends on Shadeland, Will and his friends must confront unfathomable horrors. Everyone Will loves, his mother, his little sister, Mia, and his friends, will be threatened, and very few of them will escape with their lives. So that is Children of the Dark. And the last book has been talked about on BookTube a lot, and with some pretty glowing reviews. So it is The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. This is a 7-year-old. Wen and her parents, Eric and Andrew, are vacationing in a remote cabin on a quiet lake in northern New Hampshire, a handful of miles from the Canadian border, far removed from the hustle of city life, cut off from the urgent hum of cell phones and from the internet. They are more than 2 miles away from their closest neighbor in either direction, along an old dirt logging road. On a cloudless summer day, as Wen catches grasshoppers in the front yard, a stranger unexpectedly appears. Leonard is the largest man Wen has ever seen, but he is young, 24 and a half years old, and friendly, with a warm and wide smile that wins her over almost immediately. Leonard and Wen continue to talk and play until 3 more strangers, 2 women and a man, all dressed like Leonard in jeans and button-down shirt, come down the road carrying strange, menacing objects. In a panic, Wen tells Leonard that she must go back inside the cabin. Before she goes, her new friend tells her, "None of what's going to happen is your fault. You haven't done anything wrong, but the 3 of you will have to make some tough decisions. I wish with all my broken heart you didn't have to." As Wen sprints away to warn her parents, Leonard calls out, "Your dads won't want to let us in, Wen, but they have to. We need your help to save the world, please." The Cabin at the End of the World is an unbearably tense, gripping tale of paranoia, sacrifice, apocalypse, and survival that escalates to a shattering conclusion, one in which the fate of a loving family and quite possibly all of humanity is entwined. Electrifying and haunting, it is a masterpiece of terror and suspense from the fantastic, fertile imagination of Paul Tremblay. Like I said, this is my first Paul Tremblay book. I've heard a lot about this author, so I am looking forward to reading this. That is The Cabin at the End of the World. So these are all the newer horror books that I've picked up for the month of July. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.